Hey everyone, so here we are. This is the game room tour for GameCube Galaxy. You guys voted for this on Twitter, so here we are. Sit back, enjoy, lots to show off, over 1,300 games in this room. Let's go. So first off, we'll start with consoles. So here I have my PlayStation 5, and then we got the PS3 Slim. There's the Wii U, and we have my coveted GameCube with the Game Boy player attached. There's the original fat PS2 model, and also a TurboGrafx 16 Mini. Then we also have the original Xbox as well. Here's the Sega Dreamcast, which I picked up a few years ago. Loved it. Really cool console. The N64 with an EverDrive 64X7 cartridge. And the underappreciated Sega Saturn. This is a very cool system that I really enjoyed back in the day. Here's my arcade 1-up. This was actually one I reviewed on my previous channel, which was Gamers Extreme. I did mod it though, so it has a Raspberry Pi with LED buttons, so I can play thousands of games on here. Now we have my Amiibos, which I've been collecting these since day one, since Super Smash came out in the Wii U. I remember buying the original Link Amiibo, and since then it just kind of turned into this thing where I wanted to get them all. Almost like Pokemon, right? You gotta catch them all. But unfortunately I haven't caught them all, I haven't bought them all. I do have a good amount from the series, from the Super Smash series, as well as a few of the other series that came out afterwards where they did like a Super Mario wave, a Kirby wave. But yeah, like you said, you see the gold ones there. You know, you got Mr. Game & Watch and the Wii Fit Trainer and Charizard, and this is on top of my bookshelf. Actually, this is two bookshelves put together, and this is on the very top to display them all. I've got two ends where they're basically the end level set pieces of the original Super Mario in the background that holds the Amiibos. So yeah, you have those there, and then in the middle of all that, you'll see coming soon as I'm starting to pan over. You'll see there's a Donkey Kong set right here, and this is really cool too. This one I never saw in stores. My brother got me this set for I believe it was Christmas or my birthday, one or the other. But this one I never saw in stores. The end one over here, this is a second set piece of the end level Mario. This was a more common Amiibo display set. So over here is kind of like my Link section of Amiibo. So these are all the links that I have Amiibo-wise. The only one that's not going to be displayed here is the original Super Smash Link that was up on the other set piece. And over here we have Kirby, we've got Little Mac, you got Bayonetta, you got Falco, Samus, who was actually my second Amiibo I purchased. You got Captain Falcon, Fox, and then one of my all-time favorites is Banjo-Kazooie. Then you got Snake, you got Pit, you got Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles, you got you got Dr. Mario, Silver Mario, Chibi Robo Toad, and Rob. Then you got Luigi, who's just terrified to show off what's right next to him. This is actually a first figures statue from Luigi's Mansion 3. Over here is the R-Wing from Starlink. Then you got two Shantae displays with a question block that's lighting up in the background with a Ocarina of Time Link figure. Then over here you have a little lit up marquee from Zelda with a Shovel Knight and Sonic custom-made bead figure, and then there's the Tron Evolution Collector's Edition light cycle figure that lights up. Over here we have a few Pixel Pals, Ratchet and Ninja Turtles, Leonardo from Ninja Turtles, a few Skylanders like Crash and Donkey Kong. Then you have Trevor Belmont statue from the Netflix Castlevania series, and then you have Sekiro, which came with the collector's edition of the game. Over here, we have one of my favorites, which is the Spider-Man PS4 statue. Here we have Chun-Li. This is from the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite Collector's Edition. And there's Mega Man to coincide with that. Also over here, we have Zero and Mega Man X. These were little figures I remember getting at Toys R Us back in the day. And then there's also a Mega Man statue. Actually, this one's the plasma cutter from Dead Space 2's Collector's Edition. Here we have more Pixel Pals. We have Luigi, we have Super Mario World Mario, we have Sonic, Mega Man, Super Mario Bros. 3 Mario, and a custom bead design of Mario climbing up a vine. Here we have a cool statue of Sonic, and we have the Sega Genesis Mini and the PlayStation 1 Classic, alongside a Tails statue. So over here I have a few Totakus. So I have Kratos, Master Chief, you have Beautiful Joe, you have Lara Croft, Joanna Dark from Perfect Dark, Crash Bandicoot, Agent 47 for Hitman, Banjo-Kazooie, the character from Bloodborne. So here we have a few World of Nintendo figures like Samus, we have Link, this is the Skyward Sword Link, and then we have Fox McCloud. And then over here we have Skull Kid from Majora's Mask. We have, I believe, Sheik. Yep, Sheik from Ocarina of Time, and Princess Zelda from Ocarina of Time. Over here is actually a cool TMNT poster from the movie that came out back in 2007, signed by the director Kevin Munro, who I met at New York Comic Con back in 2007. Over here is a really badass statue of Leonardo from the comic book version of TMNT, with a Wii U gamepad there. Over here is a Sonic Mania collector's edition piece where it was basically a statue with Sonic standing on the Sega Genesis, and if you flick it on, it says Sega, which is really cool. Then to the right of it, you actually have a Sega Astro City mini arcade with a controller, as well as an SNK arcade mini version. These are really cool. Over here I have a few more figures. I've got some Mega Man Pop figures, some NECA game figures over there, and a 20th anniversary Sonic figure. Still in the box. Alright, so over here we have a Kratos statue that came with God of War Ascension. We have a Batman Beyond Pop figure. We have Galahad from Order 1886 Collector's Edition. And then we have one of my favorite statues, which is the Hayabusa and Regent of the Mask statue that came with the Collector's Edition of Ninja Gaiden 3, one of my favorite series of all time. We have Ryu over here with a cool playset, or statue set basically. These actually light up and they play sounds. So Ryu will say Hadouken, Ken will say Shoryuken, and it lights up when you push the buttons. This is a really cool piece to put side by side. And then I have a Mega Man helmet that, yes, you can put on your head. This is actually some other memorabilia. I have a Hyrule Warriors acrylic print. I have Nintendo Game Pack cards still wrapped. So here are my GameCube games. Now, the GameCube has always been near and dear to me. I mean, it was the first home console that was actually mine. I mean, back in the day, it would be a console for my brother and I. We'd have to share it. And I remember when the GameCube was coming out, he had gotten the PS2, so I got the GameCube the Christmas that it came out, and I remember just having so many fond memories of the console. And over time, it just kind of dawned on me just like how strong of a platform it really was, and so underappreciated. And seeing that there's really not much content for the system in terms of video content or covering reviews or anything about the system, I felt like now was the time for me to actually do this because I have such a passion about this console and it really does deserve to be covered with some high quality content, at least what I feel would be high quality for the system. So I don't have every game for the system, but I'm still working my way there. Here are a few Japanese games I have: Dream TV World Fighters, Kuru and Squash, and Nintendo's Puzzle Collection, as well as the coveted Game Boy Player disc. Here we have my NES Mini with a copy of Ninja Gaiden 2 on top of that. We have the SNES Classic right next to it. Here's a box for the GC HD developed by Eon. This is what I use with my GameCube currently. There's the spines for those Japanese games. And there's Zelda 1 and 2 for the NES. Next up is my Switch collection. The Nintendo Switch I picked up on midnight of its launch day back in 2017 alongside my Zelda Breath of the Wild Master Edition and I love this console. By far one of the best consoles this generation, bar none. Has a fantastic library. There is literally something for everybody plus more. It really does astonish me just how much this platform has, and we've even seen some really surprise releases in terms of what games can even be released on this system that were games that were running on like the PS4 and X1, games like Witcher 3 or Doom, and things that you would never expect to run on this tablet-like device. But the fact that it was a hybrid console that you could play docked or handheld just on the fly, it really was like the culmination of everything that Nintendo has done over the years with their consoles and just put it all together into this, and it really shows. There's no denying how much I love this console based on the amount of games I have here. Where as I'm scrolling through this video, recording this, I'm just looking, and I have about well over 160 physical releases, and this is not even mentioning all the releases I still have even digitally as well. Next up is the Wii U. I was I was one of the firm believers of the Wii U. I got it again launch day. Even with my previous site, which was Gamers Extreme, as I mentioned earlier, we were invited to a private press event for the Wii U 5 months before it launched in New York City, and we got to test it out. And I was a firm believer in it since then. And honestly, once it came out, I love the system. I don't have a massive library for it, but what I do have, I felt like were all quality titles. And honestly, I felt like it was a very underappreciated console. Next up, we have the Wii. This console was a runaway success for Nintendo. It really was, as it was codenamed, revolutionary. We weren't really seeing anything with motion controls before, and that was for better or worse. Depending on how developers made games, certain games really did a fantastic job of immersing you further with motion controls over traditional controls. And while the Wii was known for a lot of shovelware titles, and I mean a lot of shovelware titles, there were a lot of fantastic exclusives for the system as well that to this day are still very, very well made. And honestly, it was a system that I still love to this day. I will still pop it on. It's still just an absolute blast. The N64 was another fantastic system. My brother and I both got this on Christmas of '96. Our first games were Star Wars Shadows of the Empire and Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and then like maybe a week later we finally got to pick up Super Mario 64. And this system was revolutionary for us. We were coming from the Sega Genesis to the N64, so going from that 2D to 3D space was just mind-blowing, and I feel like kids nowadays will never understand that transition. And it was such a revolution. You know, honestly, N64 to this day still one of my favorite consoles of all time. So many stellar games, and while visually a lot of the games, well, 99% of the games have not held up too well visually, in terms of gameplay, there's still a lot of fun to play. Now this over here is actually a copy of Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. I know, crappy game, but Will Friedle actually signed this cartridge for me at MegaCon, so that was really cool. So next up, we have just a few SNES games. We never actually had an SNES growing up, but this is a few games that a buddy of mine gave me just to add to my library. Next up is another fantastic library is Game Boy. I loved my original Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. We got two SPs, one of which I got from a Dad Box Challenge recently, the DS Lite and my Zelda new 3DS XL. So here are some of my DS games that are complete in box. So we can check out some of these over here. And I didn't have that many physical DS games in terms of complete inbox. And we got 3DS, another fantastic library, just really some stellar titles. And honestly, I love the 3DS because the 3D aspect, while it wasn't perfected initially, once they started releasing those new models that had an extra camera on there just to have a better orientation for you to see the 3D without the glasses, without any sort of glasses on rather. I'm surprised that we haven't seen more of that nowadays. I felt like that would have been a standard. It's a shame nobody tried to, kind of bring that onto TVs. So here are some of my complete inbox Game Boy Color games. I have a pride to enjoy this. I have Castlevania Legends complete inbox, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil Gaiden. Those three alone, I mean even Pokemon Yellow, those four rather, are worth a ton of money, and back then would have never guessed. Luckily, I just used to take the game out of the box, close the box back up, and never touch it again. So they're pretty much in immaculate condition. If they didn't have any plastic wrapping on them, they'd be grade worthy. And I even still have the box for my Game Boy Color, which is pretty cool to see. And then there's the Game & Watch Mario that came out last year. So here are some of my games laid out. Actually, not some, but these are all of my games laid out for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. They're mixed in, they're not in any specific order, but just to showcase my library, because just the boxes alone I felt like didn't showcase a proper feel of what I actually have for this system. I mean, at the time, this was my only system because the N64 was mine and my brother's, but this was like mine. So like I felt like this was the system I can get my own games for. And not that I didn't want to share, but it was just kind of cool to have my own thing. But the Game Boy Color, oh my gosh, the amount of memories I have playing a lot of these games is just like countless. So next up, we have more GBA games now. These are ones that I didn't have boxes for. They're interweaved with some that I have boxes for. But for some reason, again, same thing, I kind of got a lot of these loose, whether it was trading with friends or a few friends giving them to me, or I bought them off of a few people over the years. As you guys know, getting complete inbox of Game Boy or Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance games right now, much like the N64, is very expensive. The retro market itself is so hot right now. But, as it stands, I am very happy with my current library of GBA games. And honestly, it's actually really cool laying these out so you actually see all of the games that I have in like one space. I think that's actually a pretty cool thing to showcase personally. So next up is PS4. PS4 is a system I have a ton of games for as well. It was not a system that I wanted to actively collect for, but it just happened to be that way, just because, again, there was actually a lot of fantastic games in the system. And from November 2013 up until basically the Switch launched, the PS4 was my main console to go to. But again, there was so many fantastic exclusives. Games like Bloodborne, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, and then you saw that I had the PlayStation VR, which I felt was so underappreciated. And I felt like that was actually the next evolution of gaming, was bringing it to a VR space. And if you haven't played the PSVR, I feel like everybody should give this a look. If not now, even for next year when their new version of the VR comes out on the PS5 by holiday of 2022. They just mentioned that earlier at the time of this recording, actually. But in terms of my library, it's definitely a vast library. A lot of niche titles, a lot of mainstream games, several limited run games. But yeah, just like I said, fantastic library, no question about it. And here we have some of my PS5 games, slowly growing library for whatever's currently available. But games like Returnal, Ratchet, and Demon's Souls are really big standouts. Now, the PlayStation 3. This is the console that I have the most games for, well over 200 physical releases, and I'm not even counting all the digital releases I've purchased on this console. Basically, the PS3 was probably one of my favorite consoles of all time, mainly because I think it was just at the time it came out. I was just going into college. It was that time where you usually have more time to game. But I remember even back at the time, that's when I started having a job. I was going to school, working, and then basically putting some money aside to get some games. But I was also at the time competing with my oldest brother, and our big thing was who can have the most physical games. It was a stupid thing for me to jump into, but I still won somehow. But yeah, like I said, the PS3 had a fantastic library of games as well. So many games. Going through this list, even when I was recording this, I was going through, and there was so many games I saw again that I was just like, yeah, I want to revisit this, and I want to revisit this one. The PS3 was just a great console in general. It was competing up against the Xbox 360. It came out a year afterwards, and programming for it, I knew a lot of developers were complaining about how difficult the cell processor was, or porting games from the 360 to the PS3, things like that. But it made the generation more enticing, more engaging rather, to be into, because we actually got to still see games that looked different a bit between both platforms. Whereas we're currently in a generation where there's maybe a few pixel count difference between games, where it's a little too samey to me personally. I actually like having these kind of differences. But yeah, that being said, PS3 alone, like I said, is well over 200 games in my library. Played through basically all of them. Maybe a few of them that I never really got through. Something like, actually it's coming up right now, is actually Twisted Metal. I never got around to playing the Twisted Metal reboot that they launched. I've heard fantastic things about it. I just never got around to playing it. Yeah, there it is right there. But games like the Uncharted series were fantastic. Just really exceptional console. So next up is the PS2. I don't have a ton of PS2 games, but it was a fantastic system as well. I have about roughly in the 60 to 70 range of physical releases on the PS2. But there were so many standout titles for me on there as well. Games like Metal Gear Solid 3 or Castlevania games, Contra, the Ratchet series, Resident Evil. So yeah, no question, PS2 has some great games. SSX Tricky is another fantastic one that's also on the GameCube. And then we got also coming up, we have some PSP games. PSP is another system I loved. Honestly, I think I spent more time playing my PSP than I did my DS back in the day. It just landed at a time where I was more interested in the platform and what games it had to offer. But yeah, PSP had another excellent library, varied, lots of great pick up and play games, so definitely an awesome console. And I had two models, the 3000 on the left and the 1000 on the right. Next up we have the Vita. Not a big library for this. I'm going to be upfront. I was not a big fan of the Vita. I really just did not like the console that much, but that was just my personal thing. Next up is Sega Saturn. This is a system I started collecting for probably about 4 years ago when it started going up in price, so bad timing. But I was starting to collect this because I wanted to play these games on the Poly Mega, which I'm still waiting on. But yeah, this is the library I currently have that I just can't wait to fire up on there. But in the meantime, I still have my Saturn. Next up is the original Xbox. Again, not a massive library. I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Xbox, but there were still several games, exclusives, that I really wanted to add to my library for sure, including, I even have those Burger King games. Then we have Evercade. I have a few Evercade cartridges over here. Next up is Dreamcast, and Dreamcast, like I said, is a system I started collecting about 5 years ago. I had just learned about how amazing the library was not too long ago, and I really had a fun time collecting for what I wanted at the time. A lot of games I got to pop on and try for the first time that were really cool, and then I started collecting for PS1, again for the Poly Mega, because I wanted to build this cool library on that platform that's, again, still waiting for that to come out. But yeah, PS1, I tried to get a lot of the games I wanted early, and it's a good thing because games like Parasite Eve 1 and 2 are really expensive. Legend of Dragoon went up in price. You know, I have Spider-Man 1 and 2 on here, which were fantastic games. You know, Tomba 2 is like ridiculously expensive now. So yeah, that about wraps up my game room tour. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you want to comment down below, feel free to. I'd love to discuss anything you guys want to talk about in terms of what you guys saw here today. And stay tuned for the next episode, which will be next week. Hopefully, as long as everything comes through, we have a big collaboration video that I'm really excited to do, and I'm really excited to showcase to you guys. So, as always, everyone, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.